welcome to another Conversations on Awaz-e-Haqiqat that stands for the voice of truth. I'm your host, Chris Malika Bhadra, and depending on whichever part of the world you're listening to me from, I'm joined by someone who has done amazing work when it comes to poetry, when it comes to writing what you want to write, when it comes to expressing the socioeconomic status of the country you live in. And I've always wanted to speak to a female author, female poetess. I don't want to generalize it, but this is the topic of conversation that I'm going to have tonight or today with Fizza Abbas, that what does being a female writer or a female poet mean to her in the wider prospect? Fizza is an independent journalist, poet, and author whose work has appeared in over 100 international platforms. Her writing spans poetry, investigative journalism, and creative nonfiction, with Bylines and Dawn, The Diplomat, The News International, Feminism in India, Outlook India, Indiana Voice Journal, London Grip, Arre, Beltway Poetry Quarterly, Murray Review, Poetry Review, Harpy Hybrid Review, my apologies, and many more. Her stories have not only driven sales and topped the first page of Google, but have also been cited in court to challenge the unethical portrayal of sexual violence in mainstream Pakistani media. On that note, Fizza, very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Chris, for doing this. It's a pleasure talking to you.
The pleasure, the honor is all mine. Trust me. Thank you for saying yes to this conversation. Fizza, first things first, you have written so much, and I don't know where should I start. This is very impressive, and I've looked up to you ever since we met, and I started reading about you. What prompted you to start writing?
So, thank you so much for asking me this question. I started writing when I was 11 years old, and we were actually given an assignment in school that was about small arms. So, we were tasked to write a poem about small arms, and at that time, I did not know what small arms are. So, I really thought in terms of biology. So I thought that small arms means just your hands. They get smaller, and then you have to write about it. So then we had a teacher who explained to us that this is not what small arms means. And then I came to know slightly about the gravitas of the topic that I was assigned to write on. So then I submitted a poem, and then HRP, Human Rights Educational Program, did this activity. So they really appreciated me, got a certificate, and that was it. But that actually somehow gave me a calling that this is something I enjoy doing. So I started doing it more often. I gave myself a task that I need to complete 25 books by the time I turned 30.
Wow.
And I did that. That collection included a lot of, poems, a lot of. I used to write basically primarily in both English and Urdu at that time. But later on, I gravitated more towards English. And in my home, the environment where I was brought up in, we had an environment where all sorts of good songs, good melodies were played. Like for example, I grew up listening to songs of Lata, Rafi,
Right.
and all those sorts of people, and we would hear poetry of Sahil Ludhianvi and Iqbal Bano and Faiz Ahmed Best. That was the kind of environment that I was growing up in, and my mom was very well versed in English, Urdu and Persian.
Yeah.
So I was more familiar with that sort of thing. So then I started writing, but then I completed that task of finishing 25 books. And then later on, I suffered from meningitis, so that took a little bit of toll on me in terms of health. But I came across a website of Maria Pepper called Brain Picking. So in that website, I learned about the journey of other writers, like how they basically navigate between physical health challenges as well as their creative endeavors, and how basically they utilize that time when they are sick in order to build something. So that actually triggered me somehow, and then I got back to writing again. And I submitted my work to, I would stalk a lot of writers basically. Like people stalk celebrities, I would stalk writers and see what they're, publishing, what's really happening. So I came across a lot of online journals, and I came to know that, okay, so you can submit your work to these international journals. And, I did not know about acceptance rejection at that time. I just wanted to send my work across. So I sent my work to a journal called Eye on Life magazine, and after two rejections, they accepted my work. And that was the first publication of mine that was something that made me think that, okay, so this is something that maybe I can, work with, I can try, I can, submit to other journals and see
Yeah.
what they come up with, how they respond. So this is how my journey began.
Thanks. That's amazing, Fizza. Thanks. Wonderful. Just one question that while I was reading about you, and your bio also mentions that you've written about feminism, right? I'm not going to generalize it to any country per se, but just the topic of feminism. Now, when I talk about feminism, a lot of men think that we are anti-men. Feminism means we are against men. You've written so much, Fizza. How would you explain feminism from an author's point of view?
I would say that feminism is a concept that doesn't just whisper uh, womanhood. It basically talks about the quiet struggles of womanhood as well as manhood in terms of identity, in terms of what's happening in the society, how both genders are discriminated unequivocally and not given a platform to voice their opinions. And it's more about keeping both genders in parallel to each other and making them realize what their roles are and not ostracizing any of them and then making them do any of the tasks or any of the things that are happening in society and make them contribute to them equally without any bias, without any judgment, without anything like that. Because like women, men are also discriminated and vice versa.
Yeah.
So discrimination, is something that is faced by both genders. So feminism basically tells you that both genders shouldn't be discriminated, and they have different roles and different ways to contribute to society, and how they can do it while working simultaneously with each other without ostracizing or without belittling one another. So that's how I understand feminism.
Absolutely. Thank you. I wanted to ask this because a lot of people think that when I say I'm a feminist, people think, oh, you're anti-men. It's not. We're not anti-men. We're just voting for equal rights and equal stand.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I wanted to add one more thing that I think that, a lot of men who, I come across always say that, you guys talk a lot about women than men. So we basically do that because you see, our patriarchal structures have always been designed in a way that men have, by default gotten an advantage of that.
Yeah.
Not by, their choice or not by, their own doing, but this is how it has always been. But when it comes to women, they have always been belittled, they have always been ridiculed, they have always been bullied. And, stats and numbers, everything, show us that way. That every day you hear a news about women being, abused, women being assaulted, women being murdered, and stuff like that. You don't get to hear such stories about men. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen to men. Obviously, it does. But when it comes to women,
numbers are higher.
Yeah, the structures are designed in a way that you automatically start blaming the victim.
Yeah.
Whereas when it comes to men, you are like, okay, so this happened with that person, you don't blame that person. But when it comes to women, you automatically start blaming. So that's what feminism is against about, and that's something that we want to voice for.
And also, if I may add quickly, Fizza, we want to stand up for men's rights as well. I just request that we don't have it one on top of the other. We need to have parallel conversations, right? Don't keep piggybacking. All right. From feminism to one of your books, Fizza, because I want to come to social issues, right? You've written Ul Jalul. Now we want to hear more from you, obviously. But when you were writing that, in your opinion, how does spoken word or poetry help in connecting generations with societal vices?
Sure. So, when I was starting this book, I was not exactly thinking along those lines. I just wanted to, write something that comes naturally to me. But when I started writing that book, somehow, these issues came to my mind, like, for instance, misogyny, classicism, linguistic bias, and all those things. And somehow they became natural to me in a way that, these things started coming out of coming out of my mouth and then onto the paper in a way that it shocked me for a moment. That okay, so I used to think that I'm very alienated when it comes to my writing. I used to think that these things are not something that would affect me, because I used to feel that I'm living in a privileged situation, and so these things wouldn't affect me because obviously they haven't affected me directly. So I would think like that. But when I started writing that book, somehow I realized that these things have started affecting me as well, in terms of what I was looking around, what I was seeing around me. And as a writer, as a poet, you're very sensitive, and you just look at these things and they start to bother you, that why is it happening like that. So when I wrote that, so automatically I started writing about female grief and classicism and misogyny and things like that. And I realized that when I was writing that, so a lot of poems became confessions and questions in a way that they would echo through generations. Like, for instance, a grandmother may hear her suppressed anger in a line, or a
Yeah.
teenager may find rebellion in a metaphor.
Hmm.
And similarly, I believe that each performance somehow becomes a ritual of reclaiming what
Yes.
was written. So spoken word turns, like that's just how things are, into why is it still like this. And in terms of Uljalul, I have used humor, satire, as well as surrealism to make the uncomfortable visible, and somehow through my metaphors, and basically make it as broken as it is, instead of just changing the narrative, or instead of making it comfortable for my readers, I try to communicate it the way it is. That's how I did
That's
it.
amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Because I think satire is very useful to kind of reflect what's going on in the society. The next thing, Pizan, this is a question I've been meaning to ask you. You have co-founded Aurat Kahani, which basically amplifies women's voices, right? Now, when we talk about women's voices, we are in 2025, AI and all that has happened great. Do you really think, Fizza, that women's voices are still silenced in today's date and age? And if you think so, why is that? And Fizza, can I please request you to come a little closer to the laptop? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I definitely think that women's voices are still, confined and are not getting the opportunity to really come out. And because what happens, we still have societal expectations that confine women to those expressive, nurturing, and emotional roles,
Yep.
rather than, instrumental roles. Like, women can't be assertive, they can't be dominant, because that to, devaluation of their voices in terms of public and professional spheres. There is this implicit bias that lead to women being interrupted more often, like their ideas are being overlooked, and they're often not attributed to men, which results in them facing backlash even if they try to assert themselves. And similarly, which we have really weird beauty standards, I believe. Like, we try to apply those Western beauty standards on women in South Asia.
Yep.
And that we do that to silence women. So we try to focus more on physical appearance rather than their intelligence, their accomplishments, their knowledge. And that also leads to power imbalances. Like, in terms of, we see that in workplace dynamics, so men always get the chance to dominate conversations and be a part of decision making processes, which makes women even more hesitant and less assertive to voice their opinions, to share their thoughts. And they're often being ignored when they're trying to speak up that.
Yeah.
And similarly, if we look at social spaces, so we see that there is a lot of misogyny all around us. So there is lack of trust in the system, and there is misogynistic hate speeches that we get to see everywhere, like little jokes and those sexist things that they
Yes.
often say that to belittle women, to try to silence them. So we get to see that these things around us, so which is why I feel that these are really subtle forms of silencing. And let alone not talk about the more loud forms of silencing, because when it starts from very subtle nuances,
Right.
like in casual conversations, women are interrupted, they're dismissed, they're mocked for expressing their
Yes.
opinion. So that also, really, that's a way to silence them. So, with Aurat Kahani, what I try to do that so far is that I have tried to provide women a platform where not they can just voice their thoughts, but they can also come up with their ideas, how they can help themselves as well as other women. So, what we have done so far is that our website is currently in the works, but we
Mm.
have organized a seminar on Women's Day last year at Karachi University, where we invited women from all walks of life and try to have a conversation with them and
Mm.
see that what are the challenges that they face and
Yeah.
how we can help them navigate that and what sort of empowerment they can provide to other women, because right now sadly empowerment is a very buzzword. Like,
Mm.
then comes empowerment. Like, you can search on Google, there would be thousands of search results that would come up with that, but are we really empowering women? That's a big question. So with Aurat Kahani, I'm trying to answer that by collaborating with women, by helping them, by doing whatever we can. So we have also partnered with UN Women Pakistan, and we went to women and who were trying to sell their small businesses, and how they are the challenges that they are facing in Mohenjo-daro, and what kind of challenges are they facing, what are their thoughts, how do they want to proceed, and all those sorts
Right.
of things. So I actually had a conversation with somebody last year where that person said something really nice,
Mm.
that we often use the word underprivileged for women who are from rural areas, but we don't consider them as privileged as us in terms of their opinions, let alone lack of resources and all other things. If the change will start if we start considering them as privileged as us in terms of their mental faculties. So that's something I really
Absolutely.
different.
But Fizza, when we talk about women's voices being silenced, right, and patriarchy, we know that the society is structured that way. But do you think that somewhere women also play into the part into patriarchy, like elder women silencing younger women, mothers silencing daughters? What is your take on women trying to silence other women?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true. And somehow, we have been brought up with ingrained misogyny. We can't help it. Like most of our women, if we look at elderly women, then they are brought up with those same patriarchal values that we are trying to fight against. So we can't, really put them to fault. But what we can really do is maybe try to, make them see another perspective, maybe try to have conversations with them. I'm not saying that change will begin in overnight or
Yeah.
in a day, or if we have a conversation with any woman, then she's going to change or anything, but maybe she'll have some sort of realization. Because the thing is that patriarchy has not only affected women of our age or modern age, they have also affected those women. Like they
Yeah.
have also been, belittled by the women of, who were elder to them. Like, their mother-in-laws or maybe
Yeah.
their sister-in-laws. So they also know those kind of things. The problem is that they have been, forced to think that this is the norm. But if we maybe try to make them feel that, what they have been through is just pure and unabashed misogyny, and they have been ridiculed, they have been silenced, so they will also start looking at it from their perspective, because we all have experienced it in one form or the other. So I feel that if we have more conversations with these people, maybe we'll try to help them navigate with that mental conundrum
Yeah.
that, like us, they also have in their mind, but they don't know how to articulate it.
True, true. I agree with that they don't know, like our mothers, grandmoms obviously don't know how to articulate. But somewhere what I think is unfair is that just because you don't know how to articulate your trauma, you put it on me. That how are you so
Yeah.
better and articulated what I went through? So that gap, as you mentioned, has to be filled. Coming back to your role as a poet and an author, Fizza, you know, you've been writing for some of the socioeconomic conditions in your country, right? Now, what are some of the challenges an author faces when they write about these conditions, which are very true and brutally real? And sometimes, do you get scared of repercussions?
Thank you for asking me this question. I feel heard and understood by just listening to your question. So thank you so much for that. Yes, I have faced a lot of repercussions. Uh, I'm not going to compare it with ordeals of other women. I'm just talking about my
Yeah.
journey. So I did a story about an ordeal that I endured in 2023. So that's about I was falsely accused of blasphemy in Pakistan, and blasphemy, you know what sort of consequences and repercussions it comes with in terms of Pakistan. So I was falsely accused of that, and a guy made me take off my dupatta right on the streets in Karachi because that person confused what was written on my dupatta with Arabic verses of Quran. So because of that, that person made me take off my dupatta on the road, and I wrote about that story in for the Diplomat. And similarly, when I was in Mohenjo-daro reporting for about these small women-led businesses, so there were a group of guys who were following me around, and I was not even aware of it. Thankfully, I had my husband with me, so he was there to safely take me away from there. So similarly, online backlash is something that I really, uh, give much weightage to because at the end of the day, it's just a username and with a profile picture that I can easily delete. But there have been a lot of cases where people have messaged me, people have tried to hack my account twice after I did a story on a drama called Hadsa that was aired in Pakistan, and it was for made on a women, a motor rape.
Yeah. The gang,
They
yeah.
did without taking her consent, and it was very traumatic for her. So I did a story about it, and so I two times my account had been tried to hack and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of things happen, but you can say that maybe I'm crazy, or maybe uh, some strength comes from within when I look at strong women around me, like yourself and the women I meet on daily basis. I was brought up in a very matriarchal home. So I saw women doing everything right from changing tires to
Right.
plumbing to doing everything like that. So I was very I had very strong women around me. So
Hmm.
somehow when I look at them and the women I meet and the women I read about, that gives me a lot of strength. So somehow that fear gets subsided, and I try to, write as much as I can about these issues. But
Amazing.
still, I feel that I need to do more. So yeah,
Hats, hats off to you, Fizza. Kudos to you for your grit, strength, bravery, and not giving up when anybody else could have crumbled. So hats off to you, Fizza.
thank you.
The next thing I really wanted to ask you, ever since we started communicating about having this conversation, is there's always a bias when we say there's a gender gap, there's a pay disparity. Now, when it comes to literary writings in your world, do you think fame, recognition, everything is different when it comes to a male versus a female? Is there a gender gap in your world as well?
Okay, so I haven't faced it, thankfully, but yes, there is. And because a male author, is considered more of an authority compared to a female author.
Hmm.
Similarly, a female author, if trying to, write boldly about politics, her grief, even sexuality, is often seen as emotional, attention seeking, fame seeking, or controversial. Whereas, if a male author tries to do the same, then he's often seen as intellectual, courageous,
Yeah.
avant-garde. Similarly, tone policing also happens. So women authors are often told to tone it down, just write
Yeah.
with more
Hmm.
grace, subtlety, But male author can, use harsh words. They can be as brutal as they want with their language and still seen as raw or literary. So this is the second, and on when it comes to marketability and visibility, I feel that somehow publishing industries, especially if you talk about the commercial ones, the traditional ones, they take male authors a bit more seriously because they feel that their work is more universal. Whereas without even reading women's stories, they often label them as too niche or too feminine or too nice, and those kind of things. Whereas male authors are
Yeah.
not looked at that way. And then there is the infamous genius tag that is mostly associated with man for some reason. So Einstein is a man, and he is considered a genius. I haven't so far read any article where Marie Curie is labeled genius.
Exactly. Mm.
So, this happens, I guess, everywhere, and yeah, we all face. But I think women nowadays, women authors that I see are extremely audacious, and they are
Mm.
extremely visionary, and they're trying to, just write in a way that their voices, just they just come out of it. Like no
Yeah.
matter what, you can pin them down. You can do anything that they want, but you can't criticize them on their literary merits. So
Yeah.
kudos to all women authors.
Kudos to all of you, Fizza, who are trying to, break that barrier, break the ceiling, break it down, and paving the way for I don't know how many young writers of the next generation who want to kind of be like you. So kudos to all of you, Fizza. Hats off to what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
The next thing is about you as a human being, Fizza. So many things are happening around us. We keep reading news that, just triggers a lot of things, right? So on a difficult day, Fizza, how do you take care of your mental health?
It's a very difficult question and a very good one because I don't know honestly. I wake up every day and the first thing I do is I look at my phone and then I read if something or the other
Yeah.
happens, affects me, and it's not easy because you want to write about everything and
Mhm.
there's too much happening around you that you can't write all of these things in just like one go. So that itself takes a toll on my mental health. And then what happens in daily life, and the challenges, the daily question that I have to ask is, am I doing enough?
Mm.
Is it fine? Can I do it? And can I break the glass ceiling? Can I help other women do that? What exactly is the glass ceiling when
Yeah.
it comes to women? Are we all doing enough? How can I do support myself as well as other women? And what's it's just there are too many questions, and introspection is an evil lady, I would say. It really meets you when you are in the most roughest phases of your life, and just tries to ask you very uncomfortable questions, and the problem starts when you don't have answers of those questions. So, and I have women around me who say that, you first need to do something for yourself and then, you can help others. But my mind doesn't work that way. So I always try to, put other people in front of me and try to help them first and then, look at me later on. So it just gets a hodgepodge of thoughts and questions, and I still don't know how to navigate that. I just try to. My husband really helps me with that. We have a conversation when I'm feeling low or when I'm not, getting any idea how to take the next step. So he's always there to help me. But I guess it's a luxury to have emotional support because not everybody has that. So
True.
I feel I'm very lucky that way.
I know. I know. Because mental health is such a sensitive issue, Fizza. If you're not surrounded by the right people, you can spiral down really quickly. So thank you to your partner, to your husband, who is the anchoring board when you need him. I hope a lot of people become like that to people around us. Fizza, what would be your message to our listeners, and where can we find you on social media?
Sure. My message would be just simply just voice your opinion. Write if you are into writing. If you are not into writing, do whatever way you, or is it at your expense to share your thoughts. Don't keep them within you. Just try to do anything or everything that makes you feel happy. Uh, don't think about the consequences. Don't think that it's not good enough. Don't think that you are not good enough. It's easy to say that. I know that, because I struggle with these thoughts every day. But we can try. We can, maybe just take one step after the other. And with GPT around these days, the biggest challenge that writers face these days is that, no matter how good we write, people are always going to compare our work to GPT. So that's also something. But I feel that, GPT can't, GPT is not you. You are your own person. And
Yeah.
no matter how many good prompts you can give it to GPT, that's always going to be GPT's response to what you thought initially. So the thought initially and the original thought is always you.
Yes.
Whereas the response can be of anybody. Like it just happens that, you share your thought with somebody and then that person comes up with a response. So I would say just look at it GPT that way. Writers aren't going anywhere because of prevalence of any LLM models or anything like that. Because what writer brings to the table is raw human emotion, which GPT can't do. GPT is always going to be technical, and GPT is going to always, regurgitate all the human emotions that it finds online. It's never going to produce that emotion for you, or for itself. What you can bring is raw human emotion, which is entirely you. And it's just you. So just be yourself, just be your own person, and just write the fuck out of it. Sorry for that.
Absolutely. Totally agree, Fizza. And where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on social. You can type my name on Facebook, Fizza Abbas, Fizzaabas on Facebook, and on Instagram it's Fizza Abbas Rabbani, Fizzaabas Rabbani, and on Twitter it's Fizza Writes, Fizzarit.
Amazing. Thank you, Fizza. Thank you for such an amazing conversation. If anything, I'm super inspired by what you're doing, what you've done, and I wish you all the very best. May you reach greater heights and inspire so many of us. Thank you, Fizza. To our listeners, if you've heard us for the first time, I really hope that you had a lot to take away from Fizza's expertise, not as a poet, as an author, but as a human being, as someone who's trying to break the ceiling for the next generation, and as someone who's trying to do right by her morals and what is right for the journey ahead. And if you are someone who heard us for a while, I hope you like the content that's put on the table. If you've got any thoughts or comment on this episode or any of the previous conversations, please write to me at Awaz-e-Haqiqat@gmail.com. Or you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram as Awaz-e-Haqiqat as well. I look forward to reading your thoughts. On that note, thank you so much, Fizza, for joining us. I wish you all the best, and maybe continue again, maybe connect again in the future for many more of these conversations. Thank you.